weather, but as you know it, once you get past lunchtime on Wednesday, you're halfway home.
Oh, absolutely, man. It is the second half of the week, which includes the weekend. So, yeah, man, I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, and we're past midway on the 15th. So we're in the second half of August, meaning that, well, I guess fall is one day closer.
One day closer.
It's still hot outside.
It's still a whiles away there,
It's
Shannon.
still a while. Oh, believe me, I know.
Time really doesn't start flying until you get to the holidays. See, the summer always goes by slow, but it's the holidays that zoom on by.
Well, that's true because you've got breaks. You know, schools close, and then people get off work. You've got Thanksgiving, and before you know, well, first you've got Halloween. Yeah, and then and that's not really a holiday, but it's a landmark in the year. It is. And then a month later, you've got Thanksgiving, and then a month after that, you've got Christmas, and you've got the stress of shopping and the whole expense. And
then once we get to your favorite time of the year, when it starts getting dark at like 5 o'clock in the day, see, that makes the day shorter, so it makes it like it's going by quicker.
That's exactly right. Well, it's still, as you said, it's a ways away, and so currently we'll just have to muscle our way through the heat. Because, boy, it's blazing out there. Okay, so have we've got this situation going on. It's a very interesting subject that we're going to talk about in 4 o'clock, and that is DNA testing. And how DNA testing has advanced. Now, as many people know, you can get a test done to check your DNA and your hereditary information. Basically, just getting a sample, a saliva sample, mailing it off, and there are these companies that check your DNA and they tell you where you're from. Really, right? Okay, that's what the thrill of it is. A lot of people want to know their real heritage and their real culture, and I tell you, a lot of people aren't happy. Okay, when they get the results, because sometimes they think that they've been raised and their family is all under the impression that maybe that they're Irish, or they're Scottish, or they're English, or German, and they thought that they had this descent. And turns out it's not true at all. Yeah. Finds out they're from someplace in the world that they never anticipated this information to come from. All right, so what does this matter? Well, it matters because of a company mainly named 23andMe. 23andMe is a company that does this type of information or does this type of research. And they have landed a $300 million investment from GlaxoSmithKline. And they will be using that. GlaxoSmithKline will be using that information, this DNA information that they will obtain from 23andMe to create medications for hereditary diseases. And so on one angle, that is very encouraging because right now they're going to be focusing on Parkinson's disease and using this data to develop medications to treat that. And then I'm sure that they're going to be using it for a number of other things. So fantastic, amazing technology, right? On the other hand, this is an incredible risk of invasion of privacy. Now, 80% of the people that use 23andMe have agreed to share that information because you've got to agree to it. However, there's always the risk of hacking. Yeah. Okay, and that hacking happens. Hacking happens a lot. And so that information, just because you are telling them, no, I don't want you to give this information or share this information, this is private and it's none of anybody's business, there really isn't any guarantee that it's going to end up that way. Right. Because hackers can get in there, and then there are people that are dishonest out there that could gain access to this information through their position and still sell it. Okay, so what, right? I mean, what do you care if somebody has your DNA information? Well, guess who could get it? The police. Okay, the police are already looking into obtaining this information for investigations. And so there's an invasion of privacy there that a lot of people aren't comfortable with.
Yeah, and so you talked about Glaxo, and that was a good one to bring up because that's kind of what brought this story back to the forefront. But ever since 2007, Google has been making investments into 23andMe. And if you look up the history between Google and 23andMe, you will find that the founder of 23andMe and the co-founder of Google were once married. Yeah. They were dating at the time that they that Google started investing in 2007 into 23andMe, and they have since married and divorced. But there has long been a connection between those two companies, which has given 23andMe, some would say, kind of some luxuries that maybe other companies kind of in the same area have not quite enjoyed.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is that 23andMe on the way to where they're at now, the FDA, we talked about them a lot yesterday.
We did.
Actually put a stop on them because they said, hey, we need to be able to verify that what you're doing is accurate, that the information that you're obtaining is accurate. It was like a 5-year process before 23andMe was able to win over the FDA and was able to really be able to continue what they're doing. But I mentioned Google, because Google has been making investments in 23andMe since 2007. And so basically, what people may not be aware of is that Google is obviously getting into this, basically so the companies want to be able to make the human genome searchable. And as you talked about with the information issue, such as with Google and with GlaxoSmith, whatever the rest of the name is there, GlaxoSmithKline, exactly. You know, this kind of reminds me of the whole Cambridge Analytica situation with Facebook. See, when people put their information onto Facebook and they didn't expect that information to get sold to Cambridge Analytica. This is a situation here where if people knew their information was being sold, I mean, their DNA is for sale, basically. They think that they're just sending it to 23andMe and getting back some results that they couldn't get back before unless they had to go through a doctor and a long process. But in this case, their DNA is actually being put for sale to GlaxoSmithKline.
Yeah, that's right.
And in this case, talking about Google, if they knew all of that, the privacy concerns that this brings up.
I think I agree completely. And what will likely happen, or what I envision with that scenario with Google, is that, and we've talked about this here on Offsides many times, is that Google now knows so much about us, okay? Where we go, what we do, what type of entertainment we enjoy, who our friends are, how we communicate with our friends, because they're all now linked in together.
Yeah.
And we have discussed the whole privacy issue when it comes to Google before, and now this brings it to a completely different level, because now Google can gain access to our DNA information. Now, what they will do with that is unknown. Besides what you were just saying, they may be able to sell it in some ways, but it's unknown what they can really do with our DNA information. However, they will have it, or they can gain access to it. And you made a very good point. Just because they have agreed not to, if you have a contract, if you will, with 23andMe, that 23andMe is not going to share your information, that doesn't mean it can't happen. It can certainly happen. And so also, we don't know where DNA testing will lead to in the future.
Exactly.
Okay, right now, the only thing that is on the forefront of the conversation is medical technology and the advancement of that, which is a good thing, and the potential for criminal investigations. But we don't know what else DNA testing and that information can lead to in the future. DNA testing and that technology, if you go back 25 or 30 years, that was such a far-fetched idea. People thought that was just crazy. And now there are cold cases, and I know of one personally very well, of a gentleman that I know who's there was a murder that took place in his family, and I'm going back like 25 plus years, all right? And they had a lot of physical evidence. They knew who did it, okay? They knew who did it, but they didn't have the evidence to tie him to the case.
Wow.
Well, decades go by, DNA technology becomes now available to the investigators. They use that, they still had the blood samples from the crime scene, and they were able to obtain the evidence to then charge and convict the murderer.
Wow.
Okay, so you're talking 25 years. So the point that I'm making is that just because we think that DNA technology and that information right now will only be used or could only be used for the things we're discussing, you never know what that can lead to in the future, because the technology is advancing at such an incredible rate.
Yeah, and there was another cold case example that was cited here in the article when referencing GlaxoSmithKline. And of course, when people listen, they'll say, well, hey, look, obviously if something like this can solve a cold case, that's great. But what about other uses that come out of this that we may not be aware of.
That's
right
my
now.
point.
Yeah, and that's the red flags that come up.
That's a red flag because, 10 years from now, they may be able to do things with your DNA information that we just cannot anticipate at all.
Yeah, 232-1542. We'd love to get your thoughts on this. 232-1542. Caller, you're on the Cajun Harley Hotline. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
I just had a thought. So what's to stop me from opening up a DNA company? You send me a tube of your spit, and I'll form letter something, make something look official like it's DNA and send it back and tell you from wherever. And then at the same time, I'm going to name a star after you for star registry. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. And I'll tell you, up until the time that I researched this topic today, I've always been very leery and paranoid about how legitimate this information is.
Yeah.
I was joking with my brother. I said, because he did it. All right. His wife did it, and she got the DNA information. She wanted to know more about her heritage and her culture. And I said, it's a scam. You don't know that that's real. They can be telling you anything. They can just make it up as they go along. However, I'll tell you, at least with 23andMe, it is very legitimate. Because there's a lot of information out there, and they actually do not. 23andMe does not actually perform the laboratory experiments or gather that information. In fact, they claim, and I believe them, that they don't even send your name or information to the lab. They sub it out to another company, all right, that is actually in Alabama. And so they send the information. Brandon sends his spit to 23andMe. This is Brandon Comeaux. Here's my address, blah, blah, blah. They then send your sample to the laboratory with just a number on it. Okay, so the laboratory does not know it's Brandon Comeaux.
Right.
Okay, then the laboratory sends the results back to 23andMe. They match the number to Brandon Comeau's and information, and then mails Brandon Comeaux the data. But you're right. I mean, there's nothing stopping you except getting arrested. Sooner or later, it's a fraud, right?
Here's the ultimate test. Take a saliva sample of your dog and send it to him just to see if it comes back, Mr. Whoever,
right.
It's not human.
Right.
Then I would believe him.
Yeah, it'd be funny if it came back and said, well, you're from German descent.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you. Unless it was a German Shepherd.
232-1542. And again, reminding, the issue really is here, not just people sending their stuff to 23andMe, their spit. People have been doing that knowingly for years.
Sure.
But now the fact that information is being sold to other companies.
Yes.
232.
It worries me more Google having it than the pharmaceuticals.
GlaxoSmithKline.
Yes, it does.
All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, guys, I actually, the previous caller, I mean, come on. You could doubt everything in the world if you want to. You can doubt anything you want to doubt. But I actually did the 23andMe just recently. I didn't really care too much to find out what my heritage was, although I was surprised to find out that I thought I was French, but I'm more English than anything, which kind of matches up to my what I did as far as research goes is searching my ancestry. But the main reason I wanted to do it was to find out what type of things that I was susceptible to in the future. I'm 58 years old, so I'm getting at that age, where you're going to start having some ailments more so than anybody. And the only thing that really came back was I have a very slight chance of having like Alzheimer's. So I recently, downloaded some apps to play like some brain games and things like that to kind of fight that off, But I think knowing that, having that knowledge is powerful to know. I mean, I didn't, I knew the risks involved I haven't committed any felonies in my life, so I'm not worried about them turning over to the cops or not.
Sure.
But other than that, I thought it was some very valuable information for me. And they tell you, it's not 100% accurate. I mean, there's a degree of that could be wrong with the information.
Yeah, sure.
So, not taking that into consideration, but at least it gave me something that I could look at and know what my health was and what to expect from it and that type of thing. So, I thought it was a great deal.
It's interesting. It's incredible information. And how amazing that we've come to this, where you can just spit into a tube, send it off in the mail, and they can send you back all this information about your past, your heritage, and about your potential future.
And it was a genius concept to come up with once having the technology to say, okay, well, we'll charge you, depending on what you want to know. There's two prices. I think it's 90 something bucks and it's 100 something bucks.
Sure.
One of them for the ancestry, one of them with the ancestry and the diseases and all that. And to be able to say, hey, we can make a little something there to be able to kind of bypass the medical, the doctors and that whole situation, and be able to make money off of that. It was really a genius idea.
Yeah. Thank you for the call.
And if,
Go ahead, caller.
Okay, I was going to say one other thing. If my DNA, it could be used in some kind of way to formulate new medicines or something.
Well, that's what they want to do. That's exactly what Glaxo is planning on doing. And that's a great thing. All right. If they can use this DNA information to further medical technology and solve a lot of the problems we have, I mean, what if this leads to a cure for cancer?
Absolutely.
Thank you, caller. All right, 232-1542. We'd love to continue this conversation with you. Give us a call. We'll be right back. Your DNA for sale. 23andMe and drug giant GlaxoSmithKline make a $300 million deal, and that's what's led to our conversation today. 232-1542, we'd love for you to weigh in. We go back to the Cajun Harley hotline, but before we do, Shannon, what's up?
Well, one thing that I'd like to point out, one of the things that we discussed a moment ago was that we don't know where DNA testing will lead to. All right? remember the movie called Minority Report?
Yes, I remember it.
Okay. And how they would arrest people for crimes that they hadn't committed yet? Okay.
But crimes they were thinking of?
They would think. That's exactly right. Okay. Now, of course, that's an extreme example of what I'm saying. But let's just say that as DNA technology and the study of DNA technology advances, they find out in 10 years or so that there is a certain DNA strand that makes some people more prone to violence or more prone to sexual assault. And now they have that information. And all of a sudden they're saying, wait a minute, Brandon Comeaux is more prone to violence according to his DNA. And so we want to restrict his ability to buy a weapon. Yeah. Okay. And so that sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Not too much, though.
Not too much when you start thinking, because science is science. And if they can prove that in a court of law and say, no, this is it. These people right here have got the exact same strain of DNA as Brandon Comeaux or Shannon Wilkerson or whoever. And all of these people ended up committing violent crimes when they hit their 40s. Okay, and they've got the evidence, they've got the history, and they've got the science to back it up. And then they say, Your Honor, we want legislation that is going to restrict these people with these strains of DNA from doing these things. And so that's what I'm saying. You don't know where DNA technology is going to lead to.
Yeah, exactly. And all in the name of safety and security as well. And I mean, look, if they can use the justification that they can use this information to help you prevent diseases, then they can also use this to help prevent crimes from happening in the future. That is not far-fetched.
It's not far-fetched at all. And on the flip side, the good thing, the potential good thing, you're a parent. All right, you've got a newborn child, a toddler, whatever.
Right.
Okay, and they study the DNA and they say, okay, this child's DNA dictates that they will be very successful as an engineer, or this child will be very successful as a talk show host, or whatever. And so then the parents know that if they start gearing that child towards that type of a career, they'll be very happy and very successful. And so
what if on the other side of that, though, they're able to determine that supposedly there's this gene, and within that gene, it's someone that is more prone to violence or whatever.
Right.
They can restrict.
That's exactly my point. You could say, well, I want to be a police officer.
Yeah.
Sorry, your DNA doesn't match up. You've got violent tendencies that you haven't reached yet. There's a violent streak inside of you that you're not even aware of. And when you're exposed to the stress and the violence as being a police officer, you will react in a bad way. So sorry, you can't be a cop.
Or not even allowed to be born. I mean, that goes to another whole level of it, but boy, you never know.
Well, that's Roe versus Wade on steroids.
Yeah, 232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I missed part of the conversation, but one of the things I was thinking about is that, like with Google, I think it would be like there'd be like pinpoint advertisement according to your DNA.
Yeah.
Like if you're prone to have male pattern baldness, I mean, you might be getting Rogaine ads or something.
Yeah.
Or
I'm a little late for that, but go on.
Non-totally bald.
So am I.
And, well, mine, of course, I have to shave the rest of it off. And but anyway, when we are maybe with insurance, you're going to get underwritten for health insurance or something. Well, it looks like there has a possibility they might have cancer in the future. Yeah. So we're not going to underwrite them, or for any kind of insurance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you can stuff like that. So it opens up a big can of worms for people.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, caller. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Wow, what if they found out there was a conservative gene or a liberal gene?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because now politics rules everything, it seems like. And so,
Amen.
That would be bad. Thank you for the call.
Thank you, caller. All right, 232-1542. Back to the Cajun Harley Hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
Say, have you ever heard of a movie called Gattaca?
No.
Yeah. It's a very interesting movie about gene editing and stuff like that.
Yep.
I would highly recommend everybody watching that movie. It's kind of an old movie, but it's a very interesting movie.
Gattaca with a G?
I believe so, yes.
Gattac. It had Ethan Hawke in it and Jude Law.
Jude Law, that's it, yeah.
Okay.
Huh.
A 1997 movie.
All right, that's interesting.
It's interesting, yeah. All right, thank you, caller.
Thank you very much.
All right, 232-1542, 232-1542. We'll go ahead and take this quick commercial break. When we come back, more thoughts from you as we continue on.
Welcome back to Offsides, everybody. So we're talking about DNA technology and how now the people that are going to be sending off their DNA to get information about their heritage, their culture, or about their health, that information is now being sold to big pharmaceuticals and to Google. Mm-hmm. And we've been discussing the potential risks involved with that and how right now there is a little risk, not a really big risk unless you're a criminal.
Right.
Okay. But we don't know where DNA technology is going to lead to. Mm-hmm. We didn't even realize that, you know, if you go back, 20, 25 years or so, that's not too long.
No, not at all.
All right. And so look what has happened in that short period of time. And now, and for the longest time, DNA testing, DNA information was a very long, slow, and expensive process. Mm-hmm. Now you just spit in a little container, you mail it off, A few weeks later, they send you back all this great information.
Well, going back 21 years ago, we had a caller in the last segment reference the movie Gattaca. And so I saw the quick little plot and wanted to put this out there because I'm becoming a believer that if it's thought up, that if it's something that comes out of the human creativity, as far as especially movies go, that means that later on down the line, it's coming.
Hey, okay, let me comment on that real quick. All you got to do is watch old episodes of Star Trek.
Exactly.
Okay, or the Jetsons.
Yep. All right, so here we go. So Gattaca. So basically, Ethan Hawke's character has always fantasized about traveling into outer space, but is grounded by his status as a genetically inferior invalid. He decides to fight his fate by purchasing the genes of Jude Law's character, a laboratory-engineered valid. He assumes the person's DNA identity and joins the Gattaca space program, where he falls in love, because you got to make it a love story, with Uma Thurman's character. An investigation into the death of a Gattaca officer complicates the man's plans. So think about that plot. And
it could happen.
It could happen in the future.
Listen, the things that we talk about here sometimes about how technology has advanced, where we are right now, and where it's heading. You know, and we're going to be discussing this in the 5 o'clock hour about the future, and never thought that we would be having these conversations. But this is real.
Yeah. 232-1542. All right, we head to the Cajun Harley Hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
This is me. Is that you?
This is me. Is that you?
This is me, and that's you.
Right, I don't know.
All right. I have two thoughts on the matter. First, you were talking about how possibly the DNA could tell you, oh, well, this guy late in his 40s has possibility to cause violence and this and that.
Sure.
I think that's an interesting theory, but I don't think that's possible because let's just say tomorrow I decided I'm going to go hurt somebody. You take my DNA today, and tomorrow it's not going to change anything. It'll be exactly the same. Now, I understand your thought is to say that people with this type of DNA can possibly cause something because of statistics there.
Yes.
But I do believe it is more of a choice there. I think it's
always.
more of that person in their mind. You know?
Yeah, always. What I'm suggesting is that the possibility that technology can get into DNA testing and find very specific strains of DNA and how those strains can be more prone to certain behavior. And then if they can back that up, they can back that up scientifically and through actual occurrences of this, then this could potentially be a real problem. And it's just a theory, as I was just saying. And I'm using that as an illustration that you never know. We don't know where DNA technology is going to lead to. It could lead to something like that. It's not far-fetched for us to consider that this could be a possibility, because if you just go back a few decades, DNA technology was so far-fetched.
And again, as we just continue looking at this, as more of these companies continue to merge and continue to collaborate, that means all of your information that you're giving to what you think is one company is just getting spread out.
Oh, everybody.
Across with everybody.
Absolutely.
Now.
Facebook, the big ones will get it. Amazon will get it. Google will get it. Facebook will get it. The government will get it.
Okay, well, then continuing on that, my second thought was actually referring to what the previous caller had talked about, Gattaca. I've seen the movie. It was very interesting. Now, talking to your point as to what DNA strains will show what can possibly happen, like you're talking about, they're more prone to have this type of mindset or their bodily function, and talking about the valids and the invalids, I do believe that the DNA strains can show a lot, and they can say, hey, look, this person is going to be this tall with this kind of stuff. I do believe it can really show a lot about you, and I'm not sure I really would want all these companies and the governments to have all that information either.
Yeah. It's the ultimate invasion of privacy.
Yep.
And you don't even know it's being invaded.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you another thing. You know, we're talking about people volunteering to give this information, right? What if they start collecting that at birth? Okay. What if it's just standard procedure for medical now, and they could justify that because of medical reasons. Okay. So now they've got DNA testing where they swab the mouth of a newborn baby, and they are able to put that information into a computer, and the computer comes out and says, okay, this is what you got to watch for with this baby. And so hospitals and doctors are going to want that information so they can better treat their patients, right?
I don't think that's far off either because of the explanation you gave. But also, once something becomes the norm and it becomes accepted, then to be able to take that next step to go from it being something that's requested and has to get approval to something that becomes automatic because it's become the norm already.
That's exactly right. Simply because they want the baby to be healthy.
Exactly. I mean, once you get down to a next generation that doesn't have the same thinking as the previous generation, that's when things change over. 232-1542. All right, caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when DNA first came out, they would movie stars and big people were talking about putting it in ink pens and markers. So when it did autographs or signatures, they could go back and verify that it was from them.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. That's interesting. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, caller. All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up next. Go ahead.
Yeah, what you were talking about, collecting the DNA from birth with a swab. They don't even have to do that now. Many people have banked cord blood for future use, like stem cell use and whatnot. So I can't even guess how many people have already done that. I'm sure it's in the millions, but there's all kind of cord blood already banked that they could get DNA from.
Yeah, from the mother and the baby.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, there you go.
I mean, it's a crazy thought, but man, it's
not that crazy. It really isn't that crazy when you think about how this technology can be used to further the human race. I mean, this could be a very good thing. Just think if you have a newborn baby and they can do a simple swab of the saliva inside the baby's mouth, and within minutes they can tell the mother, they can give that information can be shared with the doctor as to whether or not this baby has got any kind of health issues that have not surfaced yet, that haven't shown any symptoms yet, and they can treat it on the front end. I mean, that's fantastic technology. On the back end of that, now all of a sudden, that throughout that child's lifetime, that human being's lifetime, all their DNA information is available across the board.
Right, and that was the premise with the cord blood. They said, with the stem cell technology, the way things are going now, they said, we'll bank, the cord blood, and if stem cell research gets to the point where you can make another kidney, if they go into kidney failure, later on in life, then that possibility is there. And they have gene therapy now for many of the cancers that are out there. So, banking DNA could further gene therapy, but for every one good thing that can happen, there's probably 10 bad things.
That's a great way of putting it.
That's a really good way. And that exists across the board. I mean, when you think about medicines now and pain medicines, look, they develop pain medicines because people are in pain.
Yeah.
And so they're able to treat their pain. Except, guess what? People get addicted and then they die.
And I think we've learned, and thank you so much, caller, because you put it very well. I think we've learned that when an announcement is made on something, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, that a lot of times the good gets focused on, and that's great. But we've also learned that a lot of times there are other things that goes on behind the scenes and other consequences that don't get talked about that should be thought about and should be addressed.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do here with these kind of topics, because we don't want to just ignore the good possibilities out of all this, but we want to talk about it from all angles as much as possible.
And people will make the argument that, well, if you don't do anything wrong, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
That's not necessary. That doesn't really cover all this because, as we're mentioning, we don't know where this technology is going to lead to.
232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Would you like to know the day or about when you're going to die?
I was just getting ready to bring that up. What if DNA technology, with the exception of accidents, all right? With the exception of accidents, what if DNA technology gets to the point where they say, hey, guess what, Mr. Wilkerson, you're going to die at this day, at this age, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's it.
And that's a legitimate question the caller just brought up, because honestly, thinking of it to myself, I don't know if I would want to know that or not.
Oh, yeah.
No, that would be something always hanging over your head.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's bad.
Things that make you go,
Things that make you go home. Thanks, Arsenio.
Yeah, that's a great question, though, to really ponder and think about, because again, we could be heading in that direction as well.
I think that we are. I mean, maybe not to the day.
Yeah.
All right. But they may say, okay, well, you're not going to live to the year. All right. You're going to live to 62.
Right.
Do you want to know that?
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I think that's a bit impossible because they can't account for your lifestyle. I wouldn't see that coming about.
Yeah, well, it's just an illustration. Yeah, you're right, because it can't anticipate alcoholism or drug use or smoking or any of those things that could affect it. But
well,
what
I'm saying,
on
what you have so far.
That's exactly right. I guess what technology could be available is that, with the exception, if you live a regular lifestyle,
right?
Okay, and you don't become obese,
right?
And you don't smoke and you don't drink and you're not in an accident or anything like that, they might be able to pinpoint it.
Well, because I could see them pinpointing off of your current lifestyle and then saying, hey, well, if you get rid of these things, here's the probability of raising another couple of years to your to your end of life expectancy. Or, hey, if you do this kind of stuff too, you're going to take a couple of years off. I think that could very well be possible.
Yeah. What do you think, caller?
Well, there's some very good technology with it right now. Like, look at it where they can almost do this now. I think they can. They gene markers if you're going to be more prone to have a type of cancer or a type of ailment.
Mm-hmm.
And they can tell you, hey, instead of waiting until you're 50 to be checked for prostate cancer, you need to be checking before you're 30 because you have this marker, and you can sit there and say, well, yeah, my uncle and my grandfather both died of it.
Yeah, the technology does exist to a certain degree right now, but as this technology continues to advance, they will be able to anticipate these problems more specifically.
Well, as a matter of fact, Google's co-founder that we talked about that was involved in all of this, basically he was able to find out that he personally carried the gene that increases the risk for Parkinson's disease. Mm-hmm. And this was over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just amazing the advancements that are being made, and it's happening just at such a fast pace.
And that's the first thing Glaxo wants to do.
Yeah.
They want to try to find a cure for Parkinson's disease. Great move. Good work.
All right, 232-1542. One more call before we have to go to the break. You're on the air, caller. Go ahead.
Not sure if anyone's brought this up, but what's going to happen if they discover a gene for violence, a gene for gambling, or if the insurance companies get a hold of it, say, hey, you're predisposed to Parkinson's, so guess what? We're not going to cover you.
And, we touched on that in the first segment, but it's great that you bring that back up because some listeners are just joining us right now. That's a great example because the fact that now Google's been a part of this for the past decade or so, but if that information is put out there into those hands, that might be able to affect you going forward when you're trying to get insurance.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned before, we had talked about that, but glad you brought it back up. What if this technology advances and they are able to find a strain that and determines that you are predisposed to sexual assault or more predisposed to violence when you reach middle-aged years? Then all of a sudden they tell you can't buy a gun.
232-1542, that's the number to call. We got one more segment to discuss this. We'll take this quick commercial break. More of your calls. We'll be right back. 93 degrees here at the KPL News Center.
Doggy.
Yes, it is hot outside. Want to take a moment to tell you about our friends over at Red Royal House Buyers. They're a local trusted company and member of the Better Business Bureau, and they are ready to work with you.
If you're tired of being a landlord and dealing with tenants destroying your property, they would be glad to speak with you and give you some options.
Get a no-obligation cash offer for your home today with Red Royal House Buyers at 337-509-0040.
Visit them online at redroyalhousebuyers.com. That's redroyalhousebuyers.com. Follow them on Facebook or call them 337-509-0040.
All right.
That's a great opportunity if you want to sell your house.
Absolutely. And so we're having this great conversation here today about 23andMe and a drug giant called GlaxoSmithKline really coming together in a $300 million deal. And basically talking about your DNA for sale and the possibilities that can go with it. We've had some great callers that have weighed in with this today. As always, when we talk about these kind of futuristic topics a little bit, it's always interesting how we can go back and catch movies from the 90s and the 80s that kind of set a stage of what to possibly look for in the future.
Yep. And all you need to do is look at go further back. And you see technology that is existing now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, flat screen TVs. Remember that on the Jetsons?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you thought that was crazy. That's never actually going to happen. Now, a lot of people thought that by now, and when I say a lot of people, I mean in generations past, decades past, thought that by now we would all be flying around in flying
like
cars.
The Jetsons,
like the Jetsons.
I did as a kid too. I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, sure. and that technology is going to hit us sooner or later.
It will.
But right now, it's probably being oppressed by the big car manufacturers.
Yeah.
And so maybe that technology is affordable now. They just don't want to make it available to us now because everybody likes their cars.
232-1542. We'd love to get your thoughts as we continue on in the topic. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, guys. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
Okay. In my case with DNA, I'd much rather trust my physician, my doctor, my medical care doctor with my DNA information than 23andMe or Google or even Glaxo.
Yeah.
I'll ask you this question. Like most of us do our business, or a lot of us do our business online. Anytime you go to a site or an app, you basically click off and you give them, they say you got to do this, you give them permission to do all this stuff.
Yes.
That's the problem with technology. We don't know what we're signing half the time.
Yeah, well, and we don't know who's going to get that information. And unfortunately, a lot of people are. One of the big investors in this, in 23andMe, is Google. And so Google can now have access to all of your DNA information. Now, what can they do with that right now? Not much. Okay, they can't do much with it right now. Maybe through your DNA, they can find a way to better advertise to you and therefore sell more advertising. But as we mentioned, we really don't know where DNA technology is going to bring us to in the future. I mean, 10 years from now, they may be able to get information about you through your DNA that we never imagined.
Oh, I totally believe that. I mean, look at technology, and I'm going to use kind of a weird example. I mean, when they were working on splitting the atom, you've got two uses, a good use and a use that's a detriment to man. And what do human beings do? And then today, the profit motive and the insurance companies, automobile, they'll use things against you every minute. I hate to say it that way, but so.
Well, that is a big concern.
That is a big concern. That's right.
And you just said the key phrase, profit driven.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call.
Guys,
Thank you, sir. All right, 232-1542. We go back to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
I wanted to find out when you do a PKU test on your infant. I don't know if they even do that nowadays. It's been a long time since my kids were born. That's a blood test. Can they use that for DNA? Wouldn't they have records of all those PKU tests that they've done?
That's a good question, and I would imagine that they could. If they can extract DNA information simply from your saliva, I would imagine that they could do the same thing with the blood.
Right. So they have all of our kids. I mean, if they're still doing PKU tests, they have all of our kids' information already.
Wow, that's creepy. Very good point.
Well, and I would think they are. I mean, I'm looking at an article as recent as 2017 that was talking about the PKU test. So,
yeah.
So I guess they're still doing it, so they have all of our kids' stuff already.
Yeah. Thank you for the call.
Thank you, caller.
Appreciate that.
And,
now, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it makes me wonder, when you have more companies that are joining up like this, that information, is it only a matter of time before that information is kept safe? Or are we already in the point where maybe some of this information is getting out?
I think
even
the
more?
ship has already sailed.
That the ship has sailed.
I really do. I think the caller makes a good point. A lot of this DNA technology, DNA information is already out there in so many ways. We are, I guess, fueling the fire by sending out our DNA to companies like 23andMe who are going to give us information back that we want.
Yeah.
All right. So we are building that database, and I think that it's the ship has sailed. I think that it's all the cat's out of the bag, and like you just said, Google is already investing in this. I think it's just a matter of time before Google, all the big ones, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, they're all going to have it.
Let's get one more call in before we finish off the segment. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to expand on the comment the lady made about the PKU testing.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I actually have two children that have PKU, so I can talk fairly intelligently on the matter. They do testing at birth. It's mandatory. It's state law. But the type of test that they do, it doesn't collect DNA.
Okay.
And I know that is the case as well, because the children had to go back for additional DNA testing to determine the type of PKU they had and the genetic markers and what came from who and so on. So I just wanted to clarify possibly a little misinformation there. They do collect blood at birth from every infant, but it's not entered into the DNA database or anything like that.
Well, we appreciate that, caller. Thank you so
that.
much. All right. Well, that's a great call to end it on. We will go ahead and take this break. We've got your news at the top of the hour, weather and traffic as well. And then one more hour left of Offsides here on this Wednesday. You're on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
right in the middle of the week on Wednesday. So we're glad that you're here listening. And hope everybody's enjoying this blazing hot mid-August weather.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I'm not at all.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so big talk from President Trump about a new branch of the military, something we really haven't heard before, and that is Space Force. Mm-hmm. President Trump is now pushing the issue and wants to create a branch of the military that will be governed from space, or rather be active in space. And I'll tell you, if you look back in history, there was a time when your military or a country's military had to control the ground. All right. How much ground they occupied signified the strength of their military and the security of their country. Then there was a time when people had the opinion that to win a war, you had to control the seas. Okay. And everybody's navy, because as ship technology began to advance, and then countries poured more and more money into that branch of their military, they were able to control the transportation of troops and such from the seas. And so that became a very prevalent part of everybody's military. Then as jet technology continued to advance and bomber technology continued to advance, and we were able to develop these airplanes that could fly at a higher altitude and drop bombs, and that technology continued to advance, and jet technology, fighter jet technology advanced, then that became a big significant part of a military. And so I think that, yes, space is in fact the future of our country's safety when it comes to military. And I'll tell you, this is real stuff. Well, people would think, okay, well, what are we going to do up there? Well, laser beam technology is real. Laser cannons do exist. There is a gun called the intergalactic ray gun. It was first developed in the 1990s. This works with particle beams, and they're perfect for space warfare because it can travel in a straight line and they're not affected by the planet's magnetic fields. Mm-hmm. Also, they leave very little evidence as to where the source of the ray came from. And so that technology is certainly existing. There was a project from 1996 to 2005, just an example, called THEL. This is the Tactical High Energy Laser. And this technology, they stopped the development of that, but now they have researched. This technology has resurfaced, and they're beginning to advance that more and more. So what I'm saying is that it's obvious that controlling the space is the final frontier, if you will. Yeah. Excuse the pun, especially when it comes to military. And so as this advances, now we're going to put more and more money into this technology, and we will, in fact, sooner or later, have to have a militarized space area.
But, of course, the problem is this requires congressional approval to be able to make a sixth branch, and then also you've got military leaders and experts that are not on board with it, and I think it's right for them to question what's going on in the sense of, this is something that's going to be expensive, another arm of bureaucracy as well that could be involved. And I think it's interesting. And we've got some sound bites that we'll play from President Trump and Mad Dog Mattis.
Yes.
And we'll be playing, as a matter of fact, Mad Dog Mattis. Now, Vice President Pence was outlined the other day, last week, as a matter of fact, what a U.S. Space Force would look like. But Mad Dog Mattis was out in Brazil just a couple of days ago this week. And it was no coincidence that he was out there around the time that the vice president was making his remarks. Because you see, the U.S. and Brazil, U.S. is really trying to patch up the relationship with Brazil because Brazil has an advantageous area in the fact that when it comes to space research, Brazil's Alcantara Space Center is located near the equator, which makes it advantageous for space launches. So basically, the closer a launch is to the equator, the more velocity the rocket gets from the Earth's rotation. So as you can hear from me mentioning that, it is important that the U.S. has a good relationship with Brazil, definitely a better relationship than, say, a China or a Russia. you want to make sure that those countries are not able to take advantage of where Brazil is at geographically.
Well, it's funny you mentioned China, okay, because China has been weaponizing outer space. They are placing orbital, suborbital satellites with the intention of attacking enemy satellites. They're pouring a lot of money into orbital ballistic missiles. Satellite attacks on Earth targets will be more accessible to them and much more practical. They are pouring money into technology that would allow them to jam for signal jamming from enemy satellites, incapacitating enemy satellites, plasma attacks, orbital ballistic missiles. So China is already making a lot of moves to weaponize space. This is the point is that this is here. It's real. It's not going away.
And these aren't just recent moves, Shannon. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But you go back to 2007. Mad Dog Mattis was pointing out, and of course he's the Secretary of Defense. He was pointing out how China used a ground-based missile to destroy one of its own non-functional weather satellites. And so basically it put people on notice, which they wanted to do, that said, hey, look, they can go ahead and take out a satellite in space.
Yes. And satellites can take each other out.
Exactly.
One of the things that would likely be happening in this Space Force is weaponizing satellites. Okay, this laser beam technology, and it sounds funny that we're talking about that, all right? But laser beam technology, laser beam weapons are a real thing, and that technology is advancing at a high rate. And so one of the easy ways for us to start having a Space Force is to just weaponize the satellites that are already existing right now orbiting the Earth.
232-1542. Let's head to the Cajun Harley hotline because we'd love to know your opinion on all this. All right, caller, you are on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Brandon and Shannon. I just wanted to remind everybody, Ronald Wilson Reagan started a Star Wars program.
That's right.
Back in the 80s. And, of course, William Slick Willie Clinton decided to scrap it.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the Star Wars technology and how Reagan had brought it to the forefront. And then, yeah, you're right. Clinton came along and said, man, we don't need that. Move on.
Yeah, and everybody laughed at Reagan over that.
Yep.
I'm telling you, I say thank you so much. I'm telling you, it is so easy to see the parallels between the Trump presidency and the Reagan presidency.
I think that that's by design.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I think that that's by his design, and I think that pretty much everything he does is very well calculated, except for his tweets.
Yeah.
Okay, he doesn't count. He's not really thinking those things through very much. Yeah. But there are a lot of possibilities with space technology, and one thing to definitely consider: there's a difference between militarizing and weaponizing space.
Yeah.
Okay, we can weaponize space. Maybe without Congress approval. Okay, that's a big difference right there. So if he does not get approval for an actual Space Force, there are ways that he can just use the existing Air Force and weaponize satellites that are already existing out there.
Well, absolutely. 232-1542, 232-1542. And I mean, look, I'm glad you brought up the Air Force because those that don't know, I mean, basically the Air Force is very instrumental in the work that we do in space so far.
Yes.
But there's this effort would be able to kind of get all of it together in a separate branch.
Yeah, that's right. And separate them. You know, what we're really talking about is orbital weaponry. And yes, the Air Force could in fact start incorporating this into an existing entity, I guess is the best way to put it. And so that might be an easier way to do it.
Yeah.
And instead of creating a whole new branch of the military, it might be smarter for President Trump to just put this on the Air Force.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the reality is, I mean, the United States relies on those orbiting satellites, and they're becoming more and more difficult to protect.
Oh, absolutely.
Which means more money has to be poured into that area to be able to protect us as well.
Yeah, warfare in space is definitely part of the future. Because, listen, just think if China or one of our potential enemies in the future really wants to hurt us, well, what are they going to do? They're going to want to come after our electrical grid, communications. All of those things are controlled by satellites. So instead of attacking us on the ground, all they need to do is take out certain satellites at a certain time, and man, they really could cripple you.
232-1542, we head to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yes, I think the Air Force has got that already at their forefront of what they see for their future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they could. I think that what President Trump was to do is to take it away from the Air Force, let the Air Force focus on what they're doing already, and create an entire new entity and a new branch of the military that is focused just on this.
Well, I'd appreciate it if they don't weaponize my DirecTV, because they take it out.
I hear you, man. Thanks for the call.
Don't make my DirecTV satellite a military target, you know?
Well, talk to China.
Thanks
for the call.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take this quick break. But first, your J&J Exterminating Pest of the Day. All right, so we head to Las Cruces, New Mexico, as assault charges are being filed against a New Mexico woman who officials say punched a paramedic in the face.
That's right. Officers in Las Cruces say emergency crews were called to an apartment complex over the weekend to treat a woman acting erratically.
They say Alexa Rodriguez broke out a window with a rock, after which she punched the emergency medical technician who arrived to treat her hand for cuts.
Rodriguez was recovering from cuts and bruises in the county jail.
The assault count is one of many she's facing.
That's right. So Alexa Rodriguez from Las Cruces is your J&J Exterminating Pest of the Day.
So President Donald Trump discussing what's become one of his favorite topics, and basically within the plan, the Pentagon proposal, it says the department will establish a space command to develop warfighting operations, a space development agency to more quickly identify and develop new technologies, a space operations force of leaders and fighters, and a new support structure. And then in the second phase, the Pentagon would combine all the components into the new 6th branch of service. So basically, in the meantime, the Space Command would be led by a 4-star general, and according to the vice president, he said it would also be led by a new high-level civilian post, an assistant defense secretary for space that would be created.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a lot of detailed questions to the guys that are putting this together especially in the beginning. For example, the volunteers, the people that want to join the Space Force, are they going to be required to have astronaut type training? And are these really going to be astronauts that are posing, or rather astronauts that are filling military positions in space? Are we talking about more weaponized, more robotics and technology like weaponized satellites? Or are we actually talking about men up there, people that are going to be in space stations that are going to be part of our military? I think it's likely going to be some of both. But, we're talking about this like it's actually going to happen. I don't think it's going to get approved.
Trump wants it to happen by 2020.
It needs to happen sooner or later. I think that the smarter approach would be to put this responsibility on an existing branch of the military. If you really want to get it done, that's the thing. If you really want to get it done, that's the way to get it done. You put it another responsibility, another branch of the existing branch of the military, the Air Force, and now you're already there.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to create a whole new branch, I understand what he's saying. It would be cool to do that, but you got to get it approved. I don't think it's going to get it approved.
And as we get ready to go back to the phone lines, I want to address what one of the callers mentioned earlier about the Air Force, because yes, much of the military's current space power is, with the Air Force Space Command, which of course has its headquarters in Colorado Springs. But the command has about 38,000 personnel, and it operates 185 military satellite systems, including the global or the GPS and communications and weather satellites. But under the new plan, basically, it would take those elements that are scattered across that department and then gather it under one command, and again, putting it under that one branch. So yes, the Air Force has, handles a lot of this, but they want to get this to where in one branch by itself.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the best case scenario, but
which could free up the Air Force.
It could free up the Air Force, but the Air Force might want it.
Yeah, they might.
The Air Force very well might want it. I don't know, but it's an interesting part of our definite future. This is going to happen. We have to militarize our space. The space, orbital weaponry is going to be required for our country to be safe. That's the future. That's it. China's already moving in that direction, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
It's not going to be long before the Soviets start putting a lot of money into that technology. And like we mentioned before, in generations past, you used to need to control the ground. Then we needed to control the seas. Then we needed to control airspace. Now the future is going to be controlling space. The higher up we can get, the more technology we'll be able to do.
232-1542. We head back to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, guys, it's me.
Hey, go ahead.
Hey.
Well, how y'all doing?
Hey, where you at?
Oh, man, just headed home a little early today, thank God. It's hot.
Okay.
Hey, I'm listening, man, and we need to do this, and if we don't, it's at our own peril,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got a son-in-law that's in the Air Force and been there for almost 18 years now, and I can't say what he does, but he told me a long time ago, he said, we have stuff that you just can't imagine. And I was
I believe it.
Really?
I have a brother-in-law.
Yep.
I have a brother-in-law that's also in the Air Force. He just got deployed, and he told me the exact same thing in one of our conversations. He said technology exists that the public has no idea is out there.
Correct. And he told me, he kind of made me chuckle, and he goes, the proverbial fly on the wall? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, we have it. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I can't tell you. everything that's going on. He goes, but I can tell you this, he said, he goes, you have no idea. But I mean, like I said, if we don't do this, guys, this, shame on us because, like you said, China's already investing in doing it. And if we don't, that's the one way. Because
they're going to pass us up. That's exactly right.
All of our stuff is all designed and all flown off of GPS satellites, all kinds of stuff. You start taking that down, you take down our entire communication.
Yeah, satellite weaponry. Satellite weaponry is definitely a requirement now because that is what makes us vulnerable. All right, our enemies attacking our satellites is very, very dangerous.
And I want to play this one more soundbite from President Trump because he addressed what we've been talking about here over this last couple of minutes.
He really gets entertaining.
Exactly. And, but I mean, listen, we're not used to having a president or a commander-in-chief that speaks like this. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
this
I
guy
agree.
He comes right out and says exactly what we need to hear as a people.
Well, I'll tell you, that I believe is due to his business experience because to survive in the business world, especially on the corporate level that he has been so successful in, you have got to be thinking 10 years from now. All right. And that's what he's thinking. He's thinking, where do we need to be with our military 10, 20 years from now? And we don't normally see that from presidents. You're exactly right. They deal with what's happening today. And they're trying to put out fires left and right, but they're not thinking about where we need to be in technology and our military and for safety reasons, all kinds of different issues. But I think that's what I like about this. We got to start thinking about where our military needs to be 10 years from now. And all we need to do is look and see what China's doing.
Well, and the thing I like about, and thank you so much, Craig, we appreciate it. The thing that I like about that statement that we just played from President Trump is that he puts it out there and says, hey, this is where we're at now. But then he says after that, but that's not where we're going to be for long.
Right.
And it inspires confidence and it gets people excited about the possibilities that we can attain as a country under his leadership.
Oh, yeah.
And so it easily gets people fired
up. What
up.
comes to mind is when President Kennedy, excuse me, of course I wasn't alive, all right, but I've seen the footage and you have too, when President Kennedy said we need to put a man on the moon. All right. And everybody said, oh, man, that's decades away. We can't do that. But it got people thinking. All right. And just like this does, it gets people thinking about the future. And I think that getting people thinking about the future takes their mind off of the headaches of today. Yeah. OK. And because that's all we do is we talk about our division and our problems of today. We need to start thinking about where we're going to be tomorrow.
Let's get one more caller in before we go to our next break. You're on the air, caller. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is to the naysayers. I've already heard them say, people talking on TV, making fun of him proposing this. Well, they made fun and were pushing against Billy Mitchell when he said, I can take a bomber, a plane, and drop a bomb on a battleship and sink it. He did it. Ronald Reagan came up and he said we needed the Star Wars. Well, guess what we have now? We've got the Patriot system. Israel has the Iron Dome, which is all directed from when he came up with the Star Wars thing. And the naysayers all pushed back, but by golly, they're proven wrong almost every time.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for the call. Appreciate that.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take this quick commercial break. But first... We got it ready?
What's that?
I see what you're looking up.
Okay, let's take the break.
Let's go ahead and take the break. All right, well, let me go ahead and hit this. I got to be able to grab it. There we go. All right, we'll take this quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Jeez. Kind of techno going on there. All right, Cajun Harley-Davidson. It's time to talk a little bit about Cajun Harley-Davidson.
Yes, Cajun Harley-Davidson now has a new offer called Warranty Forever. Forever Warranty provides a lifetime limited powertrain warranty. Its warranty is included in every new and pre-owned bike under 5 years old and is at no additional cost to the buyer.
That's exactly right. And through the end of this month, not only will you get Warranty Forever, which is going to be extended, that's not ending ever, but through the end of this month, if you buy one of those motorcycles, what will be included is a free 2-year warranty. Now, what that includes is a 1,000, 5,000, 10, and 15,000 mile service plan. You bring it in, you get the oil change. Every time you bring it in, you get a free detail. And if you live within 30 miles, Cajun Harley-Davidson will pick up and deliver your bike. You get a free battery during that time, and you get priority scheduling. Man. So it's a big list of things. Very, very good opportunity for people that are interested in getting a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. You get the Warranty Forever, and you get the 2-year warranty plan.
Yeah, Cajun Harley really knows how to sweeten the pot.
Yeah.
All right, it's 232-1542. As we're talking about the Space Force, and over the past week, you've had President Trump, you've had the Vice President Mike Pence, and you've had the Secretary of Defense Mad Dog Mattis all address this topic. And so we wanted to bring this up with you, have the conversation with you, and you are responding. So we go to the phone lines right now. Caller, you are on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey.
So I want to delve a little bit into a little bit of conspiracy, so keep that in mind.
Okay. All right,
but
go ahead.
Do you guys remember the explosion in Tianjin that happened in 2015?
Not
The
specifically, but go on.
It was in China, the one where it was a port, and they had a whole bunch of chemicals stored, and it exploded, and it wiped out like several city blocks and poisoned the water.
Okay,
You remember that?
yeah, briefly, but go on.
So there was a conspiracy out there that the explosion was not caused by a fire that was started there, that there was a weapon that the United States used called Mjolnir, which is a satellite that would launch tungsten rods from space and slam them into the ground.
Okay.
And, yeah, it sounds kind of far-fetched, but it goes to show that space is pretty important, because even though this is theoretical, the technology could still exist. You know what I'm saying? It's quite possible that we could have something like that. And if the Chinese were to have something like that, we would be in a lot of trouble if we couldn't defend ourselves against it.
Absolutely.
Oh, I agree. And I think that, you know, what exists right now that we don't know about is intriguing, of course, to all of us. Because, of course, the military, they have secrets, they have technology. They don't want people to know about it, or they don't want our enemies to know about it. So certainly they can't let us know about it. But advancing our position in space, I think, is definitely part of our future of safety.
I think that it only starts with satellites. I really feel like, especially if Elon Musk tries to go to Mars, I don't think that, like, whoever's president at the time is just going to let him go there without any kind of escort or anything like that, especially when they're not necessarily a subsidiary, but they're a contractor for the United States government. You know they're going to have to bring military personnel with them, and that's going to be the Space Force.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for the
caller.
call.
Well, I mean, and look, and
there's going to be a lot of conspiracies out there if this gets going.
Right, and that's true. And then, of course, on the other side, what he was just addressing, you know, that could work hand in hand when you're talking about Elon Musk and the advances they're making, going along with this Space Force. If politics doesn't stop them from pulling it off, they could work together to create something great.
Well, leave it to politics to screw anything up.
232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Is that me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, all right. Love y'all show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. The kind of like what the last caller was saying. There's rumors out that most of the Space Force already exist as black projects, and that what Trump is doing is bringing it out into the open. It effectively puts it more under his control, because black projects are subject to abuse because you have so much plausible deniability, whereas if it's out in the open, then it's subject to Inspector General reports. The public knows who's in charge of it, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, well, there's no accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that would be
Then
interesting.
you got Obama holdovers in there who have their own foreign policy goals, and when it's a black project, it's easier for them to interfere with it.
All right, maybe that's possible.
That's a great thought.
Yeah, thanks for
you,
the
caller.
call.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder, but I agree with your previous caller. It wouldn't surprise me if all this already exists. In fact, I would go farther to say that I'm 55 years old. If they were to announce that we had a base on the moon, it wouldn't be a revelation to me. It'd be a confirmation of something I wouldn't be surprised that already exists, or even on Mars. I mean, think about it. What were all these space shuttle launches for? Hundreds. In fact, there were so often that the news media, they didn't cover any more space shuttle launches because they occurred so often. I mean, you can't tell me they were going into space to see if oil and water mixed in zero gravity or if a mouse could fart in zero gravity. I mean, what were they doing? You know? Come on.
They could have been doing. They were doing a lot of things that we do know about. They could have been doing a lot of things that we don't know about. I think that we can all agree on that.
Oh, absolutely. But it wouldn't surprise me if all this already exists.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Are you guys familiar with that Tic Tac video that the Air Force put out? It was back in 2004 where the object was maneuvering, against the wind, and it was traveling faster than the Air Force jets.
No, not aware of that one, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look it up, it's the Tic. It looks like a Tic Tac.
Okay.
But it's a UFO. I mean, it was an unidentified flying object that the jets were pursuing. And so I think this whole Space Force idea has more to do with that, defending us from that, than it does from, dealing with defending us from other countries. And the sad thing is,
defending us from aliens? Is that what you're saying? Defending us from UFOs and aliens?
Well, I mean, take a look at the video. I mean,
I'm just asking you if that's what that's what you're describing.
Well, that's what they said. They said it was an unidentified flying object that they were chasing.
Okay.
And so I think that this whole Space Force thing has more to do with defending Earth from that. The only problem is they believe that these things are craft, and they're not. They're actually demonic illusions.
Well, and thank you, caller. I will say this. There was something that I saw recently, and there are some former Pentagon officials that discuss UFOs. There was actually an interview I was watching about a month ago where you had a recent government official that was talking about UFOs and talking about it so matter of fact as to say that there's not a debate that there are UFOs, but it's how to protect ourselves from them. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily he's talking about aliens, but I know people associate it with that. But this is something that a lot of people in government actually believe to be true.
That we need to start building a defense against unidentified flying objects.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
so what the caller was saying, he wasn't off. He was kind of reporting, I think, some of what he had seen.
Yeah.
But I had seen that interview too. Yeah.
Huh.
One of those
That's interesting. We should talk about that one day here.
Yeah. 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey guys. Hey, I want to probably ground this a little bit more. I think that when somebody says the Space Force probably already exists, I would tend to kind of agree with that, but only because of the number of satellites that we currently have in space, whether it be DOD or whether it be GPS or communication or something like that. So we have assets in space that the U.S. has interest in that they need to protect. And I think that a Space Force would be more of a force to secure, and not like the James Bond stuff you saw back in Moonraker where they're zapping each other with lasers, although I think that may be part of it because there are killer satellites, if you will. But I think they're more there to protect assets we have in space, like satellites and things like that, more than it is to, see stuff like you saw on Aliens, where guys are on the ground shooting at aliens and stuff. I personally think that it's more that kind of thing.
I agree, because I'll tell you, because like we were mentioning before, if you really want to crush a country, you take out all their satellites, and all of a sudden, think about how easy that would be if they could have access to taking out all of our satellites, because as we were mentioning earlier, if you really want to hurt the United States, all you got to do is take out the electric grids. You got to take out all the communications. Now, all of a sudden, your banking system is all shut down. You could do that all by taking out the satellites.
And one more thing I want to address. The guy that talked before about all the space shuttle flights.
Yeah.
I was in a class today, and I don't know if anybody realizes, but they're just in the GPS satellites alone. There are 31 GPS satellites that circle the Earth, and they only have a lifespan of 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they started launching them in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you gotta. It's kind of like a car and changing the oil. You got to go up there and take care of it at some point.
Good point. I guess so. You need astronauts for that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take this quick commercial break. We got one more segment left on the show. 232-1542.
Weird. All right. Well, welcome back to Offsides, everybody. We're talking about the Space Force, and I'll tell you, that could be very appealing to some young people who are interested in pursuing a career in the military.
Yeah.
Okay, because listen, if you want to be a scientist, an engineer, or anything in the science field, that would be the perfect career for you to get your education because, automatically when you think about the military, you think about Marines, Army, Air Force, Navy. This is a whole nother aspect, okay? This is a higher level of technology and a higher level of knowledge. And so this would be, I guess you could say, the smarter branch of the military. And so you got a lot of smart kids out there that want to be scientists. This could be very appealing to them if they want to be involved in the military, but they don't necessarily want to be in any of the other branches.
I think that's a great idea. If they can go from not letting themselves be influenced by the national media and those, I mean, look, if you go look up Space Force, you're going to see as much as the information that's out there. You're going to also see these publications and stuff and such that are mocking it.
Yeah.
And so if they can kind of look past that and not fall for the mockery of the situation, this could be something that could be beneficial for them.
Very, very appealing.
232-1542, back to the Cajun Raleigh hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I really enjoy your joint commentary, especially on this subject.
Thank you.
Thanks. And as a matter of fact, the guy a couple of callers ago, we do need a Space Force, and it's really against Russia and China. But the guy a couple of callers ago that it has something to do with aliens.
Yeah, and the demonic forces. The demonic forces, yeah.
Yeah, if an alien can reach our Earth orbit, there's no way we can protect ourselves against that. It's something in a race of beings that has that technology.
Sounds like something out of the Avengers or something.
It definitely does.
Yeah. but it is very important that we get that. I believe, unfortunately, that during the Obama years with the big NSA hack in 2016, that we lost all of our military technology. Mark Levin has a lot to say about that, to Russia. We lost it all. All of everything we had, over 500 million pages of our military technology, trillions of dollars worth, was all taken away by Russia, was all hacked by Russia in 2016. And with that information, with knowing that,
I tell you what, we're having to play catch up, is what we're doing.
Absolutely. And we the sooner the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's see if we can get another couple calls in before we have to call it a show. You're up, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Y'all were talking about the Space Force, and everybody was talking about these weapons that are out there. What I didn't hear about what y'all had going was back last year, maybe the year before, where the Air Force had an unmanned space vehicle orbiting the Earth for long extended periods of time on a secret military mission, doing whatever they were doing out there. And if people really want to know what the military's up to and what the government's up to as far as science stuff goes, they need to follow what DARPA's doing, and they need to pick up a couple of issues of either popular science or popular propaganda.
Okay. Thanks for the call.
All right, 232-1542. All right, caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, this is Paul.
Hey, Paul.
I guess I'll take the first really opposing view. We're $20 trillion in debt. We had a space program in NASA that we shut down because it was too expensive, and now we want to run a Space Force. It's kind of been done and proven inefficient.
Well, we've never really done it. We've never militarized the space around the Earth. And so that's what they're, but you bring up a good point, and that's the financing. Okay. And that's where I think he's going to run into problems.
And I hope he does. I mean, I like Trump's policies, but I'm one of those that make fun of the space program because it's been tried and done. And
this thing would cost billions.
Billions
of dollars.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that you bring that healthy skepticism into it, because it is it's reality.
Yeah. How are we going to pay for it?
Yeah.
Important question.
Thank you, caller.
All right. Thank you, caller.
All right. 232-1542. One more before we have to go. You're on the air, caller. Go ahead.
All right.
all this stuff is all well and good. It's going to happen, but it's not going to happen in space so much as people are thinking that it is, because it's going to be Armageddon. And now the book of Revelation talks about when the bear comes down from the north, Persia will follow. Guess where Bear and Persia are right now? They're in Syria. The bear is Russia. Persia is Iran.
All right. Yeah, that's great. Combining, talk about biblical history there. Yeah, I think you make a great point, caller.
And my father said in 1965, he was in the military. He said, if the American people knew what our government was up to, you wouldn't sleep at night.
Yeah, the whole thing creeps me out.
Yeah, thank you, caller. That's a great one to end it on. We appreciate it. All right, well, that is going to do it for us. We've got the aforementioned Mark Levin coming up next here on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.